After knowing my wife's cheating, I walked her out of the house and then Hi everyone, welcome back to another Reddit cheating story. Before we start, please hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you won't miss another cheating story goes live. We had a great 6-year marriage on the surface. But we chose to bottle in our feelings and avoid confrontation rather than communicate. She cheated on me with another guy and we are now getting divorced. I met my wife in an online book club about 10 years ago. At that time I did not know anything about her beside the books she was reading. Found out that she was going through chemo/radiation for stage 4 metastatic cancer, so I messaged a couple of guys in the group asking if they are willing to send me small gifts so I can organize a care package for her. She received the package in the mail and was so happy, thankful, and appreciative. We started to message each other privately, became friends, and eventually it blossomed into a long-distance relationship. I continued to send her letters and small gifts which she would open after every chemo appointment until she finally went into remission. We lived 1,000 miles apart. I flew to visit her, she flew to visit me. After all the back and forth, she eventually moved to my state. We bought a house together in 2015, got engaged the same year, and got married in 2016. On the surface, it was a great marriage. We had one argument in the entire 6 years of marriage. I was making good money which gave her the opportunity to land her dream job, which she still holds today. We had a great income and no kids. Remove the stressor of money and kids out of marriage and there is little left to argue about. If we had disagreements, we resolved them within hours, or so we thought. I will expand on this later. In 2020, we sold our house and moved 1,000 miles to live closer to her family. She had a hysterectomy in May 2021 for chronic bleeding, required 2 units of blood prior to surgery because her hemoglobin was critically low. I was fully supportive of her. She took 12 weeks off work to recover. I took 6 weeks off work to care for her. The surgeon cleared her to return to work after 6 weeks, but I was supportive of and encouraged her to take the full 12 weeks off to recover. After I returned to work and a week before she was scheduled to work, she flew out of state to see her female friend and coworker. During that stay, she had sex with another man with whom she was having an emotional affair with for months. I don't know if I was the first person she had sexual experience with post-surgery or if it was him. He knew that she was married. How I discovered the cheating was completely by accident. Last weekend, she was out of town for a conference. A couple of things, which in retrospect had no direct relation to the affair, occurred that gave me a bad feeling in the gut, and I went through her computer for the first time in our marriage. I saw the explicit texts and photos. I picked her up at the airport, drove her to our house, parked in the driveway, turned to her, and said, "Look at me. I know everything. I know that you've been cheating on me. I have seen the photos and text messages. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to go inside and grab your essentials. You can go stay with your parents or friends. The next time you will hear from me will be through my divorce lawyer." She did not deny anything. She was walking through the house to pick up her belongings. I was walking behind her because it felt like a stranger was walking in my house and going through our belongings. I never raised my voice or my hand at her, just like during our 6 years of marriage, during the entire process. After she left, I turned on the alarm system and stacked chairs against the front door. I was afraid that she'd come back if I fell asleep. It felt like an intruder was breaking into my house. I slept for a total of 50 minutes during that last 24 hours. After she left, my intention was to call a divorce lawyer the next day. I could not get a day off from my work. I texted her to come to the house. The title is in both of our names, so I was not legally allowed to kick her out before I left for work. I wanted to make sure that she was not going to do anything crazy in the house alone. We agreed to talk after I returned from work. We talked for 2 days in a row. There was a lot of crying from both of us. What looked like a great marriage on a surface was marred by the lack of communication for 6 years from both of us. We both avoided conflict and instead chose to bottle in our feelings. We learned more about each other in 2 days than we did over the course of the entire marriage. While she was away on her conference trip, I drove 1.5 hours to help her 90-year-old grandfather get out of bed, provide incontinence care, toilet him, help with breakfast, and give medication. This was the second time in 2 weeks. She texted me how much she loved me and how she appreciated what I was doing for her grandfather. She claims that she was going to break up with me after returning from the conference. Break up under the guise of falling out of love with me and not mention the infidelity to avoid hurting me. I honestly don't believe her and have a strong feeling that she'd have continued to string me along. Every single issue could have been resolved if each one of us put in just a little bit more effort. While we shared some common interests, we could not relate to the interests which were most important to each one of us. On the first day, I blamed her entirely. On the following day, I started to blame myself for not being an attentive husband. After working from home all day, all she wanted to do was talk to me after I came home from work. I just wanted peace and silence after slaving away for 12 hours. She wanted to talk about social and personal issues which were important to her, but I did not even offer a listening ear because I could not relate to her experience. This is just a couple of examples. There are dozens of others. And I don't claim to have been a perfect husband. I have my faults. But I genuinely tried to make her happy. At least as much and in ways I could. I found her at the lowest point in her life: abusive previous marriage, cancer, sexual assault, anxiety, depression, seizures, and future alcohol abuse. Excluding the affair, we will be getting divorced at the highest point in her life. She is in cancer remission, abstinent from alcohol for 1.5 years, no seizures for 3+ years, her anxiety/depression are better controlled, has a great group of friends and family who live close by. And I'm at my lowest point now. I uprooted my life for her after the move and have no local support. I haven't told my parents because they will be devastated. I'm afraid that the news will send both of them to the hospital because they loved her so much. We are currently living as roommates/friends in our house. We have agreed to make the divorce and transition as smooth as possible for both of us, even if it takes months. She offered for me to keep the house, take the newer car, keep both of our cats, etc. I can see how remorseful she is. Yesterday, we attended a virtual Al-Anon for family meeting, therapy for family members of alcoholics. What resonated with me was that family members should not blame themselves for the behavior of alcoholics. I feel like I'm blaming myself for my wife's infidelity when I'm the actual victim here. I'm here for support from others who've gone through similar experiences. I'll need to learn to trust my future partner when the person whom I had complete trust in blindsided me like this. My first session with Infidelity Survivors Anonymous is this Saturday. Thank you for letting me vent. Edit: I will add this detail for some context and not to excuse or give a legitimate reason for her to cheat. She was my first serious relationship. I had a couple of flings before her, but that did not progress to anything more serious because of a problem I had, Ed. And while we had a spicy sex life when we were in LDR, once we started living together the problem returned. At one point early in the relationship we went many months without having sex. She begged me to see a doctor, but I kept putting it off. Entirely my fault. I was younger, less mature, and frankly embarrassed. Eventually, at age 29, I'm 33 now, I got tested and found out I had very low testosterone level. And I don't know how many years I've lived this way. Probably a decade, because I always felt like I had less energy than my peers. I received T replacement at that time and felt like a new man. We started having sex again, but admittedly it was never as good as it was in LDR and never lived up to the fantasy we had prior to living together. There were still times when I couldn't stay hard, though they were much less frequent than before. She did say yesterday that while the sex was less frequent, she did enjoy it when we did have it. What I lacked in one area, I made up for it in another area, giving her oral which she loved. And vice versa. Recently I started to feel like my T levels were low again. Now more mature, I went to get tested and have a follow-up visit next week for results. Again, this is not to minimize her infidelity. But if I talk about her flaws, it's only fair that I mention my own to paint the complete picture. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for any future cheating stories.